Garrett Crochet shoving, Alex Bregman raking, and several prospects showing promise. Your official spring training report here on today's Locked On Red Sox.
You are Locked On Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Gabby Maljanian, former ESPN social media associate and current host of the Boston Balling podcast as well. And I'm here to bring you the latest in all things Boston Red Sox, Monday through Friday, straight to your favorite podcast feed. And it's completely free, so you really have nothing to lose but to continue to check in on the show because Locked On is your team every single day. We've seen a lot of promising things so far as the Red Sox kicked off their Grapefruit League schedule on Friday. So on today's show, I'm going to be going over some of the biggest takeaways from spring training opening weekend and how those tie into what we can expect come opening day. And I think one of the biggest topics of conversation right now with the Red Sox is who is going to be the opening day starting pitcher, because you take a look at the guys they have. Walker Buehler, Tanner Houck, Garrett Crochet, Lucas Giolito, Brian Bayo, and Cutter Crawford. Cutter Crawford, it's looking more and more every day like we'll end up missing opening day and not being ready to pitch yet after dealing with some pain in his shoulder that he was apparently pitching through in 2024. I never love when players do that and they try to pitch through injury like that, but I appreciate the fact that he has the work ethic and wants to be on the field. I just hope that it doesn't impact him long term. So you basically can eliminate Cutter Crawford from being the opening day starter because of the fact that he likely won't even be able to pitch at that point in the season. Not that I thought he would be the choice anyway, but you can cross him off. Then you have Brian Bayo, who also is dealing with an issue too in his knee, some soreness that has been bothering him. So he's taking it day by day right now. They're hoping he can get back to throwing, but he's also somebody whose status is unknown in terms of when he could make his season debut. He's also not the guy I would choose to start opening day this year just because of the fact that he did have some struggles in 2024. So I'd want to see him be able to pitch a little bit more consistently rather than them rolling him out there on opening day. So then you have Walker Buehler, Tanner Houck, Garrett Crochet, and Lucas Giolito in the mix. All guys who have had past experiences, some more than others. And when you look at a guy like Garrett Crochet, who is coming off of a great spring training start over the weekend where he struck out the side in the first inning and then he got into a little bit of trouble in the second inning, but quite honestly, it was his infield defense that let him down more so than his lack of pitching well in the second inning. Trevor Story tried to scoop up a ball and throw it to Casas. That play should have been made, and it was a bad throw on Trevor Story. Theoretically, Casas maybe could have gotten it, but it was 100% more on Story. So there were a couple blunders in the infield that caused Crochet to have some base traffic. It wasn't really him not throwing well. He was delivering, getting to the plate really quickly. He used a mix of pitch arsenal, which I really liked. So that puts him in a good spot to feel like, okay, I can be confident in him as the opening day starter. The Red Sox might not want to take that chance, however, because of the fact that they just got him and they want to know that he's fully ready to go first. Whereas a guy like Tanner Houck, who's been part of the Red Sox organization and is a little bit more used to Andrew Bailey's system and what he looks for out of his pitchers, I could see them naming him the opening day starter, especially because also he was the guy last year who was the most reliable in the rotation for the Red Sox. So they might want to reward him by being that guy who gets the opening day nod. That being said, though, when they traded for Garrett Crochet, they said straight up that they believe he could be an ace and that he could be their ace of the future. So by having him make the start on opening day, they're sending the message of we see him as our number one. Whereas if you go and you start Houck opening day, there might be some confusion surrounding who's going to be the number one guy moving forward, because you have Tanner Houck, who you presumably assume will be the number two behind Garrett Crochet for the majority of the time that Crochet is here, as long as Houck doesn't decline a lot to the point where he drops lower than being the number two. So if you have him make the opening day start, you're basically saying, yeah, he's the guy we trust the most right now. And that could cause some confusion when it comes to Garrett Crochet. So I could see either side of that. Then you have Walker Buehler, who's an intriguing choice because of the fact that he's a veteran and he's pitched in so many different situations before. So the Red Sox might want to put him on the mound on opening day and say, you know what, we know he's not going to be our number one starter for this season, but he is a guy that we would trust on opening day because of how much experience he has and how able he is to pitch in high leverage and in high marquee games. And opening day always gets a lot of attention because people are excited about baseball season being back. So you have all of these fans who are locked in on that game before things start to either go south or north, hopefully the latter for the Red Sox. So they could make him the opening day starter. The one person that I feel pretty confident in not being the opening day starter is Lucas Giolito, and that is because he's coming back from injury. So he does serve as a question mark. And the Red Sox definitely knew that, which I believe is why they went and acquired some more starting pitching this offseason, because they want to make sure that he's 100%. And he needs to go out there and eat some innings and show that he's fully 100% healthy and ready to go. And I don't think they would take that kind of chance come opening day when they need to field a strong team to really set the tone and say, hey, we're here. We're ready to compete this year. So I definitely don't think they would put that responsibility on Giolito because they believe he is more of a back-end starter right now with where he's at in his career. So for the Red Sox, they would look to their other starters to step up. So my guess is going to be that they do ultimately end up naming Garrett Crochet the opening day starter and saying, you know, this is our ace of the future. So we want to get him out there come the first day of the regular season. And I would not be disappointed in that choice at all. Looked good in his first start, which was a big takeaway that I had because he's battled through some injury too in his short career so far. And one other thing to note with Crochet was that he was on a limit in terms of how much he was throwing in his debut, and that is not abnormal. It's just because it is spring training and they don't want to push guys too hard early on and risk more injury. So I wouldn't read too much into that and feel like it has something to do with him being hurt, because that's definitely not the case. He's ready to go. I really liked what I saw from him out of that first start. I definitely want to see him pitch a little bit more prior to opening day to really 100% feel confident in that decision. But if we're going based off of that, I could see Garrett Crochet being named the opening day starter, because I just think it makes a lot of sense for the Red Sox in terms of the direction that they're going in and really feeling like they finally have an established number one starting pitcher. And now would be the time for them to declare that and say, he's our guy. We believe in him. And we know that he can do good things for this team. So I would not be surprised at all to see his name come across. Alex Cora has not named an opening day starter yet. I think he definitely wants to see all of these starters get some reps in the spring first and see where they're at, what their arm is looking like, how durable they are, and who's going to be able to be the most effective come opening day, because you don't know. I mean, Walker Buehler has had 2 Tommy John surgeries. He's a guy who the Red Sox are really hoping can stay healthy this year. But if he doesn't, then that's tough. They do have some depth that they can bring up to pitch in his place, but they want to make sure that he's a guy who's going to be able to be durable. And during the spring is the best time to be able to figure that out. So I could see them working him into the rotation at a lower level in terms of easing him into throwing more innings, just like they're doing with Crochet, and kind of see how that goes for him and ensure that he's ready to take on the workload by the time the regular season starts. And that is what I think they're going to be aiming more for with him, as opposed to having him be the opening day starter. So we'll have to see how these guys throw, because I definitely do believe that how they pitch throughout the rest of spring training will help make the determination for the Red Sox on who the opening day starter is going to be. I just don't think they're ready to make that declaration as of right now. So I'm excited to see how the rest of these guys perform during spring training, and even Crochet, how he continues to develop and how he continues to vary his pitch arsenal. So it's really important to be able to watch all of these starters and pick up on their strengths and weaknesses, and pick up on, okay, if this player were to start on opening day, would I trust him? That is the biggest yes or no question to answer. And if you're not sure, then the answer is probably no. But if you can confidently look at a starting pitcher while they're throwing during spring training and say, yes, I would trust him for sure on opening day because he doesn't look rusty. He looks like he's ready to go. So he's my guy. Then that probably is your guy. And for me, after his first start, that was Garrett Crochet. But again, really small sample size. So we have to just see how things play out over the next month throughout the course of the Grapefruit League season, and also see if Brian Bayo and Cutter Crawford continue to make progress towards being able to pitch in some games. But coming up, I'm going to be going over some more big takeaways from spring training opening weekend as the Red Sox look to get closer and closer to opening day. Don't forget that Locked On Red Sox is available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. I am here Monday through Friday to talk about all things related to the Boston Red Sox, and I will be talking about spring training and then talking about the season when that starts, and you won't want to miss out on any of that action. So if you just hit subscribe on your favorite podcast platform, you won't miss a single episode. And you can also follow the show on Twitter at LO_Red Sox to get some more connections with other Red Sox fans, which is always fun because I'm always interacting with people on there. And the Red Sox Twitter community is great. If you don't have the app, I definitely recommend getting it. So definitely subscribe to the show and follow it on Twitter also. And you can also subscribe to Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. That is hosted by host Paul Sullivan, aka Sully. He is here to keep you up to date on all things going on around Major League Baseball in general. So if you like hearing a lot about the Red Sox, this is the place for you. But if you want to hear afterwards about what's going on with some of these other teams, for example, you just heard me talk about who could potentially be the opening day starter for the Red Sox. If you want to go and hear about the rest of the AL East and who might be starting on opening day for those teams, you can definitely check out Locked On MLB next, as it is also available Monday through Friday on any podcast platform. And we're all just really excited to have baseball back. So if that's you in any sort of capacity, definitely continue making Locked On Red Sox your first listen of every day. Spring training games are finally here. There's no better feeling than sitting there, getting excited, knowing that you're going to get baseball on your TV. And that is exactly how I felt about the Red Sox first spring training game of the season on Friday, which was technically an exhibition game against Northeastern University. So it does not really count as part of their Grapefruit League record, if you even want to call it that, because even those games don't count towards your regular season record. But either way, we were watching the Red Sox play baseball, and it was fun. And when it comes to talking about some big standouts and takeaways from spring training, there are definitely still some concerns when it comes to the infield defense. For example, I brought up this play before where Trevor Story fumbled the ball in the infield, didn't make a good enough throw to Triston Casas at first base, and he was unable to scoop it up. I'm not super concerned about Trevor Story defensively because we all know that he's a fantastic defender, which is one of the biggest reasons why he's here with the Red Sox. And it's one of the biggest things that he provides to the team is his plus defense. So I'm not super concerned about it, but it definitely was a little bit frustrating. And Triston Casas also could have theoretically made that play. Yes, Story made it really hard on him, but Casas' defense is something to watch out for in 2025. He hasn't ever been a huge defensive liability, but we're going to have to check and see throughout the course of this season if defense is a problem for him, because if it is, it could be more of a reason for the Red Sox to feel like they might want to pursue Vlad Jr. next offseason when he is a free agent, if they feel like he would be an upgrade over Triston Casas. This is a big year for Casas in general because we're looking to see big numbers at the plate from him. Obviously, a lot of fans were saying that the Red Sox should trade him this offseason. I said absolutely not. But with the possibility of Vlad Jr. lingering, who's going to be one of the biggest name free agents on the market going into 2026, you have to have a good season. And Casas so far hasn't done anything overly impressive in spring training. I'm just looking to see him get some quality at bats and make good contact and get some good contact with the ball and be able to generate base hits and doubles and hopefully be able to stretch some of those into triples even. But Casas is not very fast, so that likely won't happen unless he hits the ball super hard. So there are certain things about Casas's play that I definitely need to see more of in the spring in order to feel confident with him going into opening day. He's the type of guy who's going to get lots of at-bats, and as long as he's healthy, he's going to be the everyday first baseman. He's a guy that Red Sox fans should know is going to be out there on a regular basis. And for him, I feel like the trade talk has to have fueled something inside of him. It can't be very comforting knowing that your name was being brought up in potential trade scenarios. If I'm him, I'm saying, look, I don't want to be traded. I want to stay here and I belong here. So I'm going to go out and prove everybody wrong and have a big season. So he needs to go out and do that. Again, early on in spring training, it's really hard to know for sure what a player is going to be like during the season because spring training is really when they're getting back into the groove of things and guys are starting to get themselves reacclimated to being with the team and the regular everyday reps. So it's natural for players to feel like they're rusty because of that. And Triston Casas is a guy to me who definitely could benefit from a lot of the reps since he missed the majority of last season with his injury and it kind of put him behind the ball a little bit. So I'm hoping that he can have a big rest of the spring and be able to have the Red Sox saying confidently that he's the first baseman of the future. Then you have another guy in Rafael Devers who's stirred up some controversy this offseason because of his lack of desire to move off of third base. And he hasn't been put into games during spring training. And the Red Sox did say he's still trying to make sure he has that shoulder issue under control that he was dealing with in 2024. But it's definitely a tough look if he really is straight up refusing to move off of third base and not able to get the reps in during spring training because he is not a great defender. And that's an area of his game that could use improvement in if he's going to stay as a third baseman. And he's been working on third base a little bit during the spring, but he needs to get into game action playing that position so that he is able to go out there and make some noise defensively and try to prove people wrong and say, hey, my defense has improved, so there's no reason you shouldn't be happy with me playing third base. So I definitely would like to see him get into games a little bit more as the spring progresses. I'm sure the Red Sox feel like he's just not ready to be put into a live game yet at this time. But the more time that passes throughout the spring, the more we won't have the opportunity to see him play third in a live game scenario. And I really hope that for the Red Sox, they are able to, on opening day, feel confident in the decision that they make. And if that decision is to have Devers play third, well, hopefully that means that he played third enough during the spring for the Red Sox to know, okay, he'll be fine in the corner over there. So that's definitely a big thing that I've been taking away from this is where's Devers? I want to see more of him. I want to see him go out there and crush baseballs like we're used to seeing from him. And I want him to especially get the reps on defense at third base, because if he's really going to be the third baseman of the future and they're going to have Alex Bregman play second, it would be in their best interest to have Devers go out there and take some reps. So I really hope the shoulder thing isn't worse than what the Red Sox are saying it is, because that would definitely be unfortunate, because as of right now, they're saying that it's something that should be under wraps for the season. But I hope that they're not stretching the truth on that, because we definitely can't afford to have Devers sitting on the bench all season long. And that does lead into also the conversation of Masataka Yoshida. What's going to happen with him? Is he a guy who the Red Sox are going to keep around? And his at-bats that he takes during the spring are going to have to be very quality at bats, because they have this contract with him, and it's tough because he can't play defense. If he could play even passable defense in the outfield, then perhaps his value to the team would keep him away from trade speculation. But he's an $18.6 million DH, which is obviously less than ideal right now. And especially if they do want to move Devers to DH, then it kind of leaves him as the awkward man out, and they don't really know what to do with him. So I feel like, in a way, the reason the Red Sox haven't traded him yet is because there might be a part of them that wants to see how he performs in 2025. They want to give him another shot offensively to see if he would be worth keeping after that, past the 2025 season. Another reason is probably because teams don't want to take on that contract, again, because of the fact that he doesn't play defense, and it makes it tough to justify. So I genuinely feel like there's a mix of both of those going on here, but Yoshida has to have a big spring. And to me, one of the biggest takeaways so far from a spring training opening weekend is that they have some guys who can absolutely crush baseballs, like Alex Bregman, who crushed a double and a home run in his spring training debut on Sunday. You have guys like that who are able to go out there and just mash. And if Yoshida can't match that kind of power, it's going to be really hard for him to be seen as a quality player for this baseball team in 2025. Now, I'm not going to write him off completely, because he definitely has shown glimpses of being a good hitter. He just was not consistent in 2024, and the consistency definitely needs to be more prevalent. And he's not really showing that he's a big, powerful home run heavy hitter. So the question is, what does he do well as a hitter? If he's not going to be that big power guy that the Red Sox would need in their lineup, and he's not going to be the guy who you can go out there and expect to hit a home run a lot, then what is it that he is going to do positively that's going to set him apart from other hitters? And that's what I'm going to be looking for from Yoshida as the spring progresses, is what does he do well offensively as a hitter that makes him unique and makes him a hard player to pitch against, whether that's he absolutely pounds fastballs and that still remains his identity, but he is at least able to hit other pitches a little bit more, so that pitchers don't just keep hounding him with fastballs and figuring out how to throw it to him, because he's always been a very good fastball hitter. That's something I really identify as a strength of Yoshida's, that he can absolutely crush fastballs, but pitchers know that that is the pitch that he hits the best. So naturally, they don't throw him as many fastballs, and they throw him more off-speed pitches. So he does, over the course of this offseason, need to work on more of the off-speed stuff and being able to make hard contact with those, because we do need his bat in the lineup if Devers is going to stay at third and Bregman's going to play second. That means that Yoshida is still going to be the everyday DH. So I'm definitely looking to see big things from him as the rest of spring training progresses, as well as taking away the fact that the Red Sox lineup is in pretty good shape right now, because you have Alex Bregman added to it, who just could provide a ton of power at Fenway with how much of JetBlue Park he was really utilizing in his plate appearances on Sunday. So we'll have to see how the rest of it plays out in terms of the offense and who's going to be playing where. Got to see more of the starters getting in. Wilyer Abreu, I'm excited to see him go out there once he's recovered from his illness, which should be very soon, and he should be able to take some reps, because he's a big question mark going into this season, is what kind of year is he going to have? Is he going to have a similar season to what he did in 2024? And if that's the case, that's really good news for the Red Sox, because that means if they do want to trade him at some point, because they have Roman Anthony coming up, then that means that they can do that, and they could feel like they could get a good return on him because his value is really high. So we kind of need him to have a 2024-like season in 2025, maybe even a little bit better would be ideal. But I really hope he doesn't start to decline, because then it would be hard for the Red Sox to trade him and get a good package back. So I'm waiting on Wilyer Abreu. Another big storyline right now in spring training is the fact that he hasn't been able to play in any of the games yet because he's been sick. So that's one of the big takeaways from me, is get Abreu into the action, because we need to see where he's at right now. And if he can stay permanently with this team, if they see him as being part of the future, or do they see him being replaced by prospect Roman Anthony, which coming up, I'm going to be talking about him among some other prospects who are in the mix right now to potentially be on the Major League roster. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started. And there's no better place to get in on it than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. I love using FanDuel's live betting feature because it keeps every moment of the game exciting. Whether I'm backing my team for a late game rally or picking a player to hit a clutch 3, I never feel like I missed my chance. Plus, the app is easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. FanDuel is a great way to win tons of money. I have lots of friends who use it on a regular basis and place all their sports bets for the day, and they've gotten life-changing money, some of them. So that could 100% be you. I know it can be frustrating trying to bet on sports a lot, especially if you miss on some of them and you come really close to winning it and then you don't. So there's those frustrations, but there's also so many upsides to it. So download FanDuel today. Happy spring training, everybody. We are here. We made it to spring training games, and the Red Sox did kick off their opening weekend of spring training games, and they defeated Northeastern, which didn't count as a real spring training game. It's just an exhibition game to get the college guys out there and some of the prospects in the Red Sox system. And then they got a win on Saturday and a loss on Sunday in their opening weekend of action. And some of the biggest takeaways that I've gotten so far are Garrett Crochet is ready to go out there and shove this year. He just goes about his business and strikes people out and is a don't mess with me type of guy. So I'm really excited to see him. I think it can make a lot of logical sense for him to be the opening starter based on what I saw. Then you have to take into account what the offense looks like right now. The fact that they've added Alex Bregman, who's a power hitter, who's a guy who can mash baseballs at Fenway Park, and how we have to get Rafael Devers and Willie Abreu into the mix sooner rather than later so that they can start contributing on offense and we can kind of see where they're at heading into the season. And also, where's Yoshida? That's another big takeaway is what are things going to look like for him? Where is his bat at now after he's been doing some work on it this offseason and his hitting style? So I'm definitely looking to see a lot of that happen. And the biggest takeaway from the guys who have been absent is get healthy and get into the lineup at some point this spring because it's going to be really crucial for us to see you. And one of the reasons Willie Abreu is going to have a lot of pressure on him going into this season is because Roman Anthony is waiting in the rafters to get called up to the majors. And he has had some plate appearances so far in spring training, hasn't done a whole lot to make this screamingly large impact, but he definitely has a good batting stance and a good head on his shoulders. And he's a guy who the Red Sox definitely are very excited about in the future. I will say he did make a fielding error in a game over the weekend. He kind of underestimated where the ball was and misjudged where it was going to fall when he was playing left field, and he doesn't really have that kind of experience in left. So I'm interested in seeing how that goes for him. Jarren Duran was supposed to be in the lineup that day, but then he was a late scratch due to some soreness. So then Roman Anthony took over for him. So his defense is definitely something to keep in mind. From watching him so far in spring training, again, it's such a small sample size, but from watching him so far, I don't think he's ready to get called up to the majors right away. I think the Red Sox should keep him in AAA at least to start the season and get him some more reps there because this is the type of player that you want to do things right with. You don't want to mess up with these special prospects, Christian Campbell, Marcelo Meyer, and Roman Anthony. You want to make sure they're really ready by the time they get called up. And Roman Anthony, to me, doesn't really look fully 100% confident and ready to get called up yet to the majors. And that's totally fine because I didn't expect him to be on the opening day roster anyway. I actually wanted him to get more reps in AAA. So that's the biggest takeaway from Roman Anthony that I've seen so far, is just I think there are still some little things in his game that could get better before he starts having conversations with the Red Sox about being on the opening day roster. And then Marcelo Meyer is a guy who I've been very impressed with so far early on in spring training games. I've talked about him extensively on the show and just the fact that he has had some injury concerns throughout his career so far, and he hasn't been able to take a single at bat in AAA yet. So I don't necessarily think the Red Sox would allow him on the opening day roster because they didn't want him to skip from AA to the majors. I wouldn't be surprised that that's the reason that they would give if he doesn't start on the opening day roster. I think they want to give him reps in AAA, which is going to be very important again, because a guy like that, if you lose reps, you could end up very behind very fast in the majors, and it could be very discouraging. So Marcelo definitely should start the season in AAA, but the biggest positive that I've gotten from him so far is that he can barrel baseballs. He was making some really good hard contact with the ball over the weekend, and that's what we really like to see. I think his ability to hit the ball very hard and very far can pan out really well for a place like Fenway. So for when he does get called up, that's very exciting because I liked being able to see him go out there and absolutely crush baseballs. So that's something to keep an eye on over the rest of spring training here is, does he have that strong bat? Because if so, and he's making a lot of hard contact, that'll be really useful for the Red Sox lineup when he does get called up. But those are my biggest takeaways about Meyer. Power bat who just probably should start in AAA because of the injuries that he's had. Then there's Christian Campbell, who kind of can play in the outfield or at second base, is fighting for the second base role right now. And I really like the versatility that he brings to his game. Definitely looking to see more from him at the plate as we progress through spring training. But he's another prospect that we as Red Sox fans can be super excited about because I know the Red Sox are really excited about him. And he's a guy who's going to be part of the Red Sox future. And then you have Vaughn Grissom, another guy who's fighting for that second base spot. Hasn't done anything yet to wow me in spring training. So I'm definitely going to need to see more from him too. But it's really hard to evaluate players at this stage because it's still so early on in spring training. But those are some of the big names that I've kind of noticed so far this spring and what I like from them, what I could see more of. And I'm just really excited for the future of this Red Sox organization because a lot of these prospects definitely have talent, including a guy named Trayce Thompson, who the Red Sox signed last week to a minor league deal. And he'll be with the Red Sox big league camp for the rest of spring training. He's appeared in parts of 7 major league seasons, and in 1,058 plate appearances, he's batted .212 with a .300 on-base percentage and a .411 slugging. Former second-round pick and brother of NBA All-Star Klay Thompson, and he suited up for the White Sox, Dodgers, A's, Cubs, and Padres over the years. And he split the 2024 season between the AAA affiliates for the Cubs and Mets, hitting a combined .233 with a .315 on-base percentage and .471 slugging in 432 trips to the plate. He's also soon to be 34 years old, and he comes to the Red Sox with at least 600 big league innings in all 3 outfield spots. His once-plus speed has dipped closer to average, which is normal as you get older, but he does give the team a potential right-handed bat to pair with a left-leaning outfield that includes Duran and Abreu right now. But Thompson has reverse splits in his career and has generally handled right-handed opponents better than he's handled lefties. That trend held up in AAA last year when he hit .237 with a .314 on base percentage and .495 slugging against righties, but only .218 with a .317 on base percentage and .391 slugging versus lefties. So he creates some versatility that he could give the Red Sox. He did crush a home run over the weekend in spring training. So definitely another prospect to keep an eye on right now, a guy who has had major league experience, but not as much as some of the other players on the roster. So he could be a guy who starts the season in AAA, but could be the first guy called up if there's an injury to somebody in the outfield type thing. There's also the password to keep an eye on, Joe Stinson Garcia, who's gotten a lot of reps so far in the opening weekend of spring training. So he's another guy in the outfield to keep in mind to potentially occupy a spot if there are injuries, but definitely liked a lot of what I saw from some of these Red Sox prospects over the weekend. And I'm excited to see how the rest of spring training goes for everybody involved with the Red Sox organization. But I really do appreciate you making Locked On Red Sox your first listen today. Like I always say, keep the faith, go Red Sox, and I'll catch you on the flip side.